Hello and welcome to the eighth and the final episode in this first season of Guruwar Gupshup with Garima. And to take this series to its pinnacle, it is my deep honor to welcome the guest for today, who is, you can call him a mystic, a monk, or simply the way he likes to be called, a spiritual teacher, Nithya Shanti. Welcome, Nithya Shanti.
Thank you, Garima. Love the enthusiasm. Thank you.
Great. So, in the tradition of this gupshup, my first question always is that we see you in all of these roles, but what is your own self-definition? How do you see yourself in a few sentences?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The way I see myself is before any such thing, including an interview like this, and actually in general, not only when I'm teaching in some way, I like to what I call identity discard. Identity discard is hold your identity lightly and if possible, even discard it completely. Because I found that any identity, even like you said, spiritual teacher, that immediately now constrains me. So now I'm supposed to be a spiritual teacher. Okay, so now I'm supposed to be a good friend. So now I'm supposed to be that. And the moment you have any kind of definition whatsoever, at some level, you're going to cramp the infinity of intelligence that is possible. Like, for example, I used to write intention. This is actually quite fascinating. Before giving a session or before giving a talk, I would write down like it's already happened, how brilliantly it went, how amazingly it went, how deeply it touched people, how transformational it was. And believe it or not, that's always how it tended to happen. But then I got curious, so I'm writing this down, and it's happening like that. Even down to things like, at the end of it, an old man shook my hands and said, "That was the best talk you've ever given." I mean, that was the best talk I ever heard of this location. I've been here many times. Like people that specific, I'd write it down and someone would come, an old man would come shake my hand and said, "I've come here for a long time. That was the best talk I ever heard." So then I got curious. So I'm writing it down and it's happening like that. But what if I don't write it down? And I was amazed to find it was then the even next level. Then people would come up to me and say, "Wow, I had so many questions. You answered every single one of them. I never had to ask." I didn't even know I'm answering someone's questions, right? So to answer your question, I found that holding the identity lightly and even better, letting it go completely is the best way that I can be.
So that brings me to a question that I had not thought about asking you, which is that do you hold all of your knowledge and wisdom within yourself? Or do you it's on the cloud and you plug into it?
Yeah, that's a good way. I think it's more like on the cloud. Because people ask me, how do you remember so many things and anecdotes and stories and quotes? And frankly, I don't. Like, for example, I noticed this very clearly with Facebook. For many years, I was posting almost daily on Facebook. And I literally wake up in the morning with a very crisp thought of what I had to share. I just wake up. Most of the time I wake up and I write it down. And then after a while, another thought would come, And I typically share 3 to 5 things a day on Facebook. In fact, it led to a pretty voluminous I just kind of printed out my entire Facebook, like 12 volumes, like the bookshelf over here. So, but then I noticed that I'd often take a break from Facebook. So like take a month off, take 2 months off, sometimes even 3-4 months off. And when I take a break from Facebook, then I wouldn't wake up with a thought like that. It's like when it was needed, then the thought would come. It's not like I'm constantly in an inspired state. If inspiration is needed to be transmitted, then an inspiring thought comes. But if it's not needed, then it doesn't come. And I can just be in a state of pure being. So I think the description of putting it on the cloud, in some sense, not looking at the brain as a hard disk drive that retrieves from memory, but looking at it more like a modem, which can access the infinite net. In the Indian tradition, it's called Indra's net. Indra's net is a very powerful way of describing the universe, where every node of the net reflects every other node of the net. It reflects the entire net. So this is like the earliest description of a hologram. Within every part is the whole. The whole is reflected in the part, and the part included in the whole.
Incredible. I will take a moment to digest and absorb that. But tell me, not all of us are in tune like that. We can't just communicate and download data from Indra's net. So maybe a little bit about your childhood. How did this journey begin for you? Any interesting anecdotes?
Sure. I mean, the chronology is I was born in the US and then my parents moved back to India. So I grew up in a few different cities in India. I was in Baroda, in Pune, in Delhi. And then I think one of the important events for me is my dad died when I was 7. So that kind of made me kind of question things that I never questioned before, and made me kind of look at life a little bit more deeply, in a sense. And I went to an interesting school called Mirambika in New Delhi, which is actually based on a free progress system. Free progress means the children decide what they want to study, which takes a lot of courage for most people to allow the children to study what they wanted to study. So for 6 years, I was in a school where I decided what I wanted to study. More than being told what to study, I allowed my curiosity to kind of form itself. And that's actually very beautiful. I wish we would have the courage. In fact, sooner or later, we have to recognize that one of the main causes of our troubles is our broken education system, which is not just slightly broken. It is so completely broken. It is so broken beyond broken that you just have to start reimagining education, right? Because otherwise, you're just creating kids with the same cramped way of thinking and same limitation that we have. For example, I studied economics. And one of the first things we're told in the first class of economics is wants and needs are unlimited and resources are limited. And this is the economic problem. This is the first thing. If you remember, this is one of the first things you're taught. And when I questioned that, resources may be limited, but resourcefulness is unlimited. And it's not true, because I've lived as a monk for 6 years. It's not true that wants and needs are unlimited. You can actually learn to limit them pretty nicely. My teacher used to have, you go to his room, and it looked like nobody even lived there. You have to look very carefully to find some evidence somebody even lives here, because it's completely empty, right? And yet he lived such a good life, such a wholesome life. So many people were touched by his life. It's not true that you have to have endless wants and needs and that resources are limited. If you get creative, like a seed looks like only one little seed, but from that seed, if you're careful, you plant it, becomes a sapling, becomes a tree, gives rise to hundreds of fruits. Each fruit contains another 5-10 seeds. That's resourcefulness. That's not saying that in an apple is 10 seeds. That's saying in an apple is infinite seeds, because you got resourceful, you see. So I guess because I was given a chance to have a slightly different kind of education, and then of course at a rather young age, 16, I learned meditation, began practicing, got interested in spiritual kinds of books. And I can't really say why it is the way it is, but somehow I had an innate curiosity, a sense of wonder. And I really believe deep down, talking about education, one of the best things we can believe is that every single child has a genius. Not a genius that's always recognized by your curriculum and your system. I heard about a little girl the teacher didn't like her because she's always fidgeting, never sitting quiet, always fidgeting. And she calls her mother and says, your daughter is just too restless. I think she's got attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. And her mother listens to her and says, nonsense. My daughter is a kinesthetic learner. She likes to learn by doing, not by listening. So her mother gets her out of the school, puts her into a dance academy. The girl goes on to become one of the world's top ballerinas. So she could have been given Ritalin and other kinds of drugs and dumbed down to say, okay, now you've got to dumb down to match our protocol. But on the other hand, you can say, no, my child, if you insist, I think if you have to have one duty as a parent, it is to insist my child is a genius, irrespective of what the in-laws think and my parents think and even I think and what the system thinks. My child is an absolute genius. If you believe that with every cell of your being, that's the biggest gift. In fact, that may be the only duty apart from feeding the child and making sure the child doesn't run onto the road. That may be the only duty you have, to believe from the core of your being, your child is a genius. And I was lucky to have teachers like that who believed in my innate, even though, of course, we as kids and youngsters, especially teenagers, we have a lot of self-doubt. We all need to have someone in our life who sees the light in us. And I was lucky at every stage, I seem to have had people who've seen the light in me. And maybe that's the reason.
Yeah. I'm just openly curious. What you say reminds me of my uncle, my Dauji, who was like that guide during my teens and everything. And he gave me a loving nickname. He calls me Jigyasu, the curious one. So, shall we? But if you give me permission, I have a few rapid fire questions that I just want like a quick and short answer for. But go into the details whenever we wish to.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Lovely. So the first one is, if you could choose only one, then pranayam or asanas?
Probably pranayam. In fact, I actually do pranayam more than asanas. Yeah, so pranayam.
What is the reason for that?
I find, one is I think I'm a little lazy with asanas. And pranayam, I do find my whole body, my whole being wakes up. I just feel so awake. And in terms of efficiency, 10 minutes of pranayam gives me far more energy than 10 minutes of asana will ever give me. So for me, it's pranayam.
Okay.
Although I don't want to say either or, but yeah, for
Absolutely. Oh no, yeah. No, not we are not looking for universal truths here. Your favorite flower?
Do I have a favorite flower?
Okay, you don't?
I'm thinking if there's something. I mean, right now, the jasmine is coming to mind, but I don't know if I have a favorite flower. Of course, metaphorically, lotus is very powerful because no mud, no lotus. Lotus emerges from what looks like a swamp. And lotus has many unique qualities. For example, it looks really ordinary from the outside, but as the sunlight falls in it, it starts to open layer by layer. And there's one very powerful mantra, most people would have heard of it, Om Mani Padme Hum, which the Tibetans pronounce as Om Mani Padme Hum, which means I pay homage to the jewel in the heart of the lotus.
Oh my.
So what is the jewel in the heart of the lotus? From this mud is emerging this flower that actually looks pretty ordinary first. Sunlight keeps falling, keeps opening. And what's the jewel at the heart of it? The jewel is actually there's nothing in the heart of it. And because there's nothing in the heart of it, it means everything, the whole universe is in the heart of it. So this is actually a metaphor for our journey. We start off from mud, feeling not good enough, feeling hopeless, keep comparing ourselves. It's really disorganized. And then from there comes what looks pretty ordinary. And then the sunlight of awareness and love keeps falling on it little by layer. First, the very coarse layers of petals open. Then the next layer of the petal open, keeps opening until at the very heart of it, beyond the subtle, there's a lovely mantra in Sanskrit. Gate gate paragate parasangate bodhi swaha. Which means gone, gone, gone beyond the beyond, awake at last. And so in a sense, lotus might be a good metaphorical example of a great flower.
Wow. Which brings us to the next one. Your favorite place to meditate?
I don't have a favorite. I like to meditate wherever I am.
I was able to predict that. Like right now, I could go.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. Here's a quirky one. If life is a road, what is the destination?
The road where you are is the destination. I like to say it like this: the journey is endless, and the destination is now. The journey is endless, and the destination is now. And the other way of looking at it, that there is a road, but there's no traveler on the road.
Really?
Yeah, there is a road, but there's no traveler. So this is where the duality kind of melts. The sense of, oh, I am here and there's a path. I often say that I'm selling water by the river. Or I say that I'm giving you a detailed map to enter a room that you're already in.
Loving this. Okay, an embarrassing memory, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. I'm trying to think now. Embarrassment. I haven't been embarrassed for so long, but I'm trying to think.
Okay, then conversely, a time that you were most scared.
Yeah, I was. I've been very afraid of death. Actually, there was a time when I was almost haunted by death because I got really afraid. Somehow, I couldn't understand why people are not afraid of death. Because when I learned meditation, I reached a certain stage in my practice where everything was just melting. Everything was just melting. Everything was just melting. I mean, it was like you can see the ice cube dissolving. And then the teachings also were like that. They were about urgency. The Buddha says, practice like your hair is on fire. Don't delay. Practice like your hair is on fire. So those kinds of teachings really, they shook something deep inside of me and they brought up a real sense of urgency, which is also why I became a monk. In fact, the word bhikkhu, which is what the Pali word for monk, one of the meanings of bhikkhu is bhayang dhikkati bhikkhu. He who sees fear in what everybody else thinks is totally normal, the bhikkhu sees fear, finds it very fearsome. It's like right now, you and I are on the upper deck of the Titanic. And we know the Titanic is sinking. Yeah, but we're on the upper deck. Yeah, there are many decks to go before our turn, right? And we're enjoying, we're having a nice Zoom call. But when you wake up and say, no, this ship is sinking, then let's not fool around, So the bhikkhu has realized the ship is sinking. It also happened to the Buddha. The Buddha saw what all of us see almost every day. He saw old age. He saw disease. He saw death. And this shook him up to the core when he realized everyone's going to go through this. And he said, then why is everyone behaving like everything's fine? How come we are behaving like everything's fine? But it hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened yet, but that's where your train is going. So I guess for me, it was a very, very kind of a deep fear which arose. And it wasn't easy to shake. It took me several years of practice before it just kind of evaporated. And I can't say when I face, I'm not going to be saying that, oh, I'm totally not afraid of death. When it comes, I'll be totally cool. I don't know. I may still have a primal fear that comes up. Who knows? But the existence, the way it was grabbing me, that'll be, so I like to differentiate between psychological fear and physiological fear. I may still be afraid of like if a snake suddenly goes by, I'll probably still jump back. But it's not a psychological fear anymore. It is more like the physiological fear. Like I went bungee jumping, and I was startled to find that I had no fear. No fear, no fear, no fear, no fear. Until I'm standing on the edge and my whole body is saying no.
Wow.
And it was correct. My body should say no. I mean, of course, why would the body say yes to something like that? I mean, unless you've done it so often that you've trained your body. But for someone who's doing it for the first time, my whole body said no, no way. And then the mind overrides that because the mind knows you're connected to a bungee cord and says, yes, I hear you, but here we go.
And how was that?
It was fun. It was enjoyable.
Would you do it again?
I'm not such an adrenaline junkie. I mean, I don't think it's a problem. But I question like even then I only did it because I'd gone to New Zealand, and a friend said, "Listen, you've come to New Zealand. This is the country of extreme sports. You have to do." She gave me some choices: either you skydive or you bungee jump. And she gave me 3-4 choices. Okay, let's go bungee jumping. And yeah, so I guess on my own, I don't go thrill seeking, but I'm not afraid of it either. I mean, afraid in the sense I'm open to it.
Got it.
Okay, I think I have to give you shorter answers for your rapid fire, right? I think I'm talking too much.
No, I love it. And anyway, that's the end of the rapid fire round. So thank you so much. I was really hoping that this would happen, that with these superficial sounding questions, something deep will come up. And as always, it is. It's just amazing what is flowing out. So now a curiosity I've had since I was a kid, 10-ish, which is what does it mean to be a good person, an ideal person, and a perfect person? And also, are they the same or are they different? A good person, an ideal human, and a perfect human.
Well, this relates to, there was an old lady who came to the Buddha, and she said, I'm going to be very frank with you. I don't understand your teachings. I find them too hi-fi. And I'm a simple, uneducated old woman. Can you teach me in simple words what you teach? So the Buddha he spoke in very simple lines. He said, Sabba papasa akaranam, kusalassa upasampada, sachitte pariyodapanam, etang buddhana sasanam. And this is one of the clearest, most crisp teachings he's ever given, right? Sabba papasa akaranam means don't do anything by words and action that hurts other beings. Sabba papasa akaranam. So in Buddhism, the most basic 5 things are that you don't take other person's life. Just because you don't want your life to be taken, you don't take the life of any other being consciously. Of course, as you walk, I'm sure I'm killing trillions of bacteria, but I'm not wanting to kill them, right? I'm not running out, let's kill some more bacteria in that corner. No. So I have no volition to kill any living being. I will not consciously go out there and kill a living being to the best of my ability. Then I will not take what is not given. And in Buddhism, we go to pretty extreme levels with this, right? So we make it a point to really check, is it okay? For example, like it's quite normal. People just photocopy a book, so what? But it's actually a big deal. Somebody spent years writing that book. You can't just photocopy it like that. If you can't find the book, you take permission from that person. Or what I would do is, if some book is not available, then I will make sure I contribute to the author if I'm getting a free copy on the internet, some way or the other, right? So that's an example, not taking what is not given. The third one is in your speech, we don't realize how much trouble we cause from our speech. Most of it is actually trouble caused by our speech. So not lying, not deceiving others, not using harsh speech, which cuts the heart open, not slandering, which is talking badly behind. In front of them, they're all very nice, and behind their back, we just cut them to pieces. And the last one is idle chatter. Just talking for don't even know why you're talking, we're just talking. So this is actually not considered to be very wholesome. And then using your sexuality in a way that hurts and harms living beings would be the fourth one. So not abstaining from that. And of course, sexual standards change. So what is considered marriageable age changes over the centuries. So that's more of a local thing. But you don't do things like, for example, in the Buddha's time, a king, it was allowable for a king to have 100+ wives, as long as he could take good care of them. That was not considered a misconduct. But there was also a distinction between who was a wife and who was, somebody else, right? So there were appropriate behaviors even for a king towards women, right? So that would be the fourth one. And the last one is in terms of substances which cloud your mind. And so nowadays it's very fashionable to just have alcohol or just have weed. And I'm not even actually necessarily against that, but you need to go to it not as an escape, but go to it as understanding what this is doing to your consciousness. And it is possible to, like, for example, this morning we had a very powerful meditation. I was thinking, the meditation we had this morning, it is actually equal to a DMT trip. Went to some really deep places without having any substances whatsoever. So it's possible to organically experience those states. And even from the early days when I began meditating, people would offer me alcohol. I was like, yeah, but this is my natural state. I don't need this. I don't need this to get. This actually brings me down. I'm actually higher than this normally. You need this to get high, but this is my high state actually, right? And years later, I tried a wonderful medicine from South America called ayahuasca.
Yes,
and ayahuasca. It really showed me what I already knew, actually. It just confirmed it. So when I was talking to the shaman, he was like, this is fascinating. You're doing this for the first time. There are people who practice with me for years and they're trying to get what you've experienced. But for me, it was just showing me what I already knew. So in other words, you can experience these things organically. So to answer your question, a good person, the first aspect of goodness is, let me not do things. It's more like a negative thing, but actually it's a positive thing. I will not do anything that hurts or harms living beings. See, it's very hard for us to agree on what we should do, whether we should wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning, whether we should drink water in the morning or not, right? It's very hard to agree on what is actually good. But it is easier to agree on what not to do. So most cultures will agree, taking life is not a good idea. Stealing is not a good idea. Sexual misconduct is not a good idea. Deceiving is not a good idea. In fact, most of the prisons of the world are full of people who've done these 5 things. They have either killed someone, or they've stolen something, or they've indulged in some kind of sexual conduct that's not considered acceptable, or they have deceived someone with their speech, or they have had some intoxicant which made them do the previous 4. That's the foundation. So that's called, in Buddhism, that's called sila. Sila is the foundation of virtue. And virtue basically means non-remorse. When I live like this, I don't have a sense that I'm a bad person or I've hurt other living beings. Of course, we cannot live without hurting someone, but at least you'll not volitionally go out there and hurt someone, right? That's the first. So to answer your question, that's goodness. What's the second word you used? Goodness?
Ideal.
Ideal. So the ideal person would be, because, this is actually it's a foundation, but it's not sufficient. Imagine it is like you're gone into a forest full of tigers. You know that you can't see them red, but you know that tigers there. So you decide to build a really strong cage of high density steel, and you're inside this cage. So now you're somewhat secure because now the tigers can't get you because you're in this cage. But you're living in a small little box. So you have to go from being a good person to being an ideal person. The ideal person takes one further step. They practice mind mastery. Mind mastery is not really mind control. Mm-hmm. It's observing the mind. It's called, there's a nice word for it, metacognition, the ability to be aware of our own thinking process. Aristotle defined education as the ability to have a thought and not believe it. So wow. the ideal person starts practicing mindfulness, living in the present. Now, whether you meditate or not, but the whole point is you start witnessing your mind instead of being lost in your mind.
Yes. And
so this leads to stability of our concentration, equanimity of mind, our ability to be balanced in all situations, and stability of our consciousness, right? So this is the second ability. This is now what happens here is a reversal has happened. The tigers have come inside the cage and you're outside the cage. So all the tigers, basically all the things that could bite you really badly are now in the cage. And now you're enjoying the rest of the forest because all the tigers are in the cage. So this is the second stage. The third stage, the perfect person, in fact, even the word person can go now, is just perfection. It is wholesome. It is complete. This is where you open the cage. This is wisdom. This is where you ride the tiger. And how do you ride the tiger? What you thought was so fearsome was never fearsome to begin with, because your wisdom has penetrated it. If you've seen the movie The Matrix, yes. In the beginning, he's like a lost soul. Then he wakes up and starts developing abilities. He goes from being a good person to being an ideal person. In the beginning, he's a good person. He's doing his job. He's trying to be okay. He's getting along. He's trying to do what he can. But then he becomes an ideal person because he can fight these agents. But finally, he becomes a perfected person. He's not even fighting agents anymore. because he's realized the word Neo in the movie is a play on the word one. O-N-E is spelled as N-E-O. So when he realizes his oneness with the Matrix, that's when he's not afraid of the agents anymore. Earlier, he was good at dodging bullets.
Yes.
Now he doesn't even, he just stops the bullets. And instead of running from the agents, he jumps inside the agents.
Yes.
So this is a great example of wisdom. So the perfect being is a being that has gone beyond concentration into wisdom. And wisdom is when you start realizing the oneness of all things. You look beyond distinctions and you start looking beyond the concepts that you have into the, you could say, the undivided wholeness that is life without our concepts. There is concept and there is reality. You start going from concept into reality. Who am I without stories? So this is the third one, and this is what then opens up. And the complete reversal, powerful reversals happen. For example, you realize, I have never moved an inch in my life.
What does that mean?
So for example, look at your own life. Hasn't around you, the rooms kept changing, the cities kept changing, the people kept changing. Have you really moved? You say you're moving. You say, I'm going from Delhi to Pune. But look at your actual experience. Isn't Pune rushing towards you? Have you ever moved an inch in your life? So you start realizing, actually, what I've been told, a lot of these things that we are told, we say, okay, like we say face-to-face meeting. This is not a face-to-face meeting. This is a face-to-no-face meeting. If I lose memory, I have no clue whether I'm the person in the sari or I'm the person in the red t-shirt. It is because of memory I say I'm the one in the red t-shirt. But actually, in my actual experience, I am just the space within which these meetings are happening. So it's always, your whole life, you've never had a face-to-face meeting. You've only had a face-to-no-face or a face-to-space meeting. Because right here, there's space. So a lot of the things that we've been talking so normally about, you start to like, that was a lie. Or that was at least inaccurate. And these things just start crumbling before your eyes. But you follow your direct experience and not what people are telling you.
Wow. That's incredible. Yeah, and while you were mentioning the movie, I was reminded of another film, Hero, in which a point comes when there are these two masters of martial arts and they are just sitting in front of each other and the entire battle is happening in their mind.
Wow.
And at the end of it, they just know who has won. That's it. They never move. It's just incredibly powerful. Wow. So the second big curiosity I had for today that I wanted some guidance about was that what I'm noticing more and more, that nothing seems to be enough for the human race as a whole. Just yesterday I heard now they have given contract to someone to put 4G network on the moon. Already they have been buying land on the moon, and I'm like, the whole earth is not enough. What's going on? I mean,
so, this is, you may criticize people like that, but look in your own life. Even you want to expand in some way. Maybe not 4G network on the moon, but for example, through this interview, you want to expand your knowledge, you want to expand your understanding, you want to expand whatever you have, a YouTube channel or a LinkedIn, whatever it is. You want to expand that, you want to reach more people. So we have to acknowledge deep down, we have this urge to expand. And the reason we have the urge to expand is deep down, we have an intuition that I'm everything.
oh,
Right. So you will always, not only as an individual, but as a community, as a species, we are bound to want to expand. Right. But the funny thing is you cannot get there in the way you're trying to get there. You cannot get there just by acquiring, like a king wants to acquire more and more and more. The Alexander the Great, it is said when he died, he said, leave my hand outside the casket. They said, why is that? So let them see that this fellow who everyone considers so great took nothing with him. His hands were empty. It's a very powerful teaching by Alexander. Now, whether it's an anecdote or not, mythology or not, it's a very powerful teaching. To leave your hands empty means no matter how much you try to gather, you cannot. The only way to understand the infinity, in fact, the symbol of infinity is very beautiful. It's this lying down 8. So what is infinity? It is 0. It is, like, imagine a 0 right here. And I twist the 0 and that becomes infinity. So infinity is 0 with a twist. So the way you understand, so the way you understand, the way you understand you are everything is by realizing that you are nothing. So in India, this is called neti neti. So you ask, who am I? Am I this person I call Nithya Shanti? Am I really a man? Am I really a Indian? Am I really a Hindu? Am I really a Buddhist? Am I? And what am I? And you keep layer by layer starts falling, layer by layer starts falling. And you realize that I am none of that. Okay, I am that in a certain context. But in another context, I am not that. Right now, I may seem like the expert. But when there's a surgery happening, it's like, get out of the room. You're not an expert. But in that context, I'm not the expert. Somebody else is the expert. I'm the dude. Get out of the room. Right? So all our expertise is only in a certain context, not in all situations. So you shed and shed and shed until you can't shed anymore. And when you can't shed anymore, that's when you taste the tasteless taste. The pure taste of I. See, everything else is debatable, right? In the whole world, you can debate just about everything. But the one thing you cannot debate is I am. Because I am. Even to say I'm not requires someone to say I'm not, right? So the most fundamental truth is I am. And that taste of I am is the same taste that you have, that plant behind you has, that wall has. So at a mineral level, at a plant level, at an animal level, at a human level, and maybe beyond human level, the basic taste that permeates this ocean of existence is I am. So when you remove I am this and I am this and I am this, and you come just to the pure I am, in that moment, you suddenly realize, oh my goodness, I am behind all of this. On the surface, I look like one tree, but the moment I went to my roots, I realized, oh my goodness, I'm the whole forest. And the whole forest realized, oh my goodness, I'm the whole planet. And the planet realized, oh my goodness, I'm the whole galaxy. And the galaxy realized, oh my goodness, I'm all of it. You see? So that's how it is, by coming to your own root and tasting your root, that you realize I'm everything. So only when you realize you're nothing. So it's neti, 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 that leads to iti, iti, iti. So I'm not this body becomes I'm everybody. I'm not these feelings becomes I'm every feeling. I'm not this mind becomes I'm every mind. You see? So that's the journey. And that's why it is understandable. And it may seem, on the surface, it may seem like a bad thing. A lot of the things you enjoy today. Like, what can you really say is truly good? Like the sari you're wearing. Someone will say, can you be 100% sure that the farmers who grew that cotton and the weavers who did it and the people who transported it, that every single one of them was treated fairly? Then you can't even wear a sari anymore, because now you can't be 100% sure. Or, maybe you're wearing some jewelry. The jewelry has come from a place where villagers' land was not taken from them and they were not forced to become miners instead. How can you be so sure? Yesterday's solutions are today's problems. This world is sandwiched like this. I once wrote on Facebook, it was one of the best things I think I ever wrote on Facebook. I said, dear God, please save the world from all those who are trying to save the world. Because in trying to save the world, we create more trouble. We think we're solving something, but that becomes, and that's a game. This is actually, it's, from one perspective, it's cosmic humor. It's a big joke, right? But then we have to suffer until we realize we don't have to suffer anymore. That's just how it goes. It's good that the word in Hindi, suffer, in Hindi means journey.
Yes.
So that suffering also is a journey. We have to suffering until the journey comes to an end.
Wow. So just, you've been satisfying me so well that just as a takeaway, maybe, if you could tell us maybe just what questions to hold, even if not the practices to follow, so that we can tap into that abundance that it's a belief of mine. I don't have proof, but it's a belief of mine that there's abundance, because I see in nature there's no wastefulness, there's just abundance. Once I saw my child when she was much younger, running around in the rain and saying, oh my God, so much water is getting wasted, Mama, so much water is getting wasted. So I realized that there's that, how can we be more in touch with that abundance?
Yeah, that's because it's a good thing you said, because questions take us on a journey, whereas answers kind of end the journey.
Mm.
And I wish in school, instead of answering questions, we invited more interesting questions. That would be a really interesting school.
So true, yes.
That would be a fascinating.
Rewarded children for asking good questions.
Instead of, and not even being quickly satisfied with an answer.
Mm.
They say that the expert can answer your questions, but the master will question your questions and question your answers as well.
Yeah.
So here, you asked me for a question. Here's a nice one. Paying attention to what I'm paying attention. Right? So this is a good question to keep alive in yourself. You get curious. You pay attention to what you pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Because you start realizing that what you focus on expands. This is one of the most basic principles I can share. What you focus on expands. If you habitually focus on what's wrong, you will find a lot of what's wrong. Right? You can ask anybody. In fact, I studied psychology, and we knew that you could take anyone off the road, anybody, randomly anybody, rich or poor, educated, uneducated, makes no difference. And in a matter of 15 minutes, if you ask the right questions, they'll be crying. Because everyone's carrying pain. Everyone is carrying a hidden burden. And so if you pay attention to what's wrong, you'll get a lot of what's wrong. If you want to find some experts on this, look up what's called a newspaper. You'll find experts on what's wrong. Every day they come up with new stuff. Look at the creativity. Every day, another 100 things that are wrong. Every single day. And yeah, just to balance it out, they'll say 3-4 things that are also good. Oh, look what happened. But then basically this is wrong. And so they're creating a mindset of, it's not okay, it's not okay, it's not okay. Look at advertising. Their whole agenda is to make you feel not good enough. Yes. You're not fit enough. You're not nice. And even the models who are appearing there, even they don't feel good enough because their photos have been photoshopped.
Yes.
So they look at themselves and say, I'm not that good, and I can't really show my face to the world without makeup because they'll see who I really am. So everyone feels not good enough. So we're basically living in this big illusion. So what are you giving attention to? What you focus on expands. So the formula is like this. Behind every problem is a possibility. Behind every possibility is pure joy. Behind the joy is a present moment. Behind the present moment is my true nature. What I focus on expands. So if you focus on problems, you get more problems. And this leads to you becoming a victim of your life.
Yeah.
If you focus on possibilities, you get more possibilities. This makes you a conscious creator of your life. Mm-hmm. If you focus on joy, you get more joy, which gets you into a state of, I'm a channel of blessings. Because you see, even a creator is seeking something. I want to create, I want to become. But now even that's gone, you just want to spread joy. You become like a lighthouse. And when you focus on the present, the word present, of course, has two meanings. One is, of course, the now. But the word present also means a gift. You start seeing everything as a gift. And when you see everything as a gift, the only response is gratitude. Oh my goodness, I'm amazed. Mary Oliver says, wouldn't God be disappointed? Wouldn't God be so disappointed if all of us are not dazzled at least 10 times a day? But we just take it for granted, right? Because we're not present. We don't see it as the present. Yeah, it's just one more thing, right? So when you stay in the present, then you start getting dazzled. And then even beyond that, you question, who am I? What is this? Where is this awareness coming from? And that takes you beyond the I am, prior to the I am. That takes you to the place where you neither came nor went. You were neither born nor you died. Dogen Zenji, the great Zen master, was asked about time. He said, most people look at time in terms of arriving and passing. This interview began, this interview ended. Interaction is a better word. It began and it ended, right? Lunch began, lunch ended. Marriage began, marriage ended. They look at that, they call that time. He said, when you understand that the beginning and the ending are happening simultaneously, that's when you understand time.
That just seems like many more years of work before that becomes an experiential.
I like how you quickly introduce time into that. Yeah, I'll get there after many more years. You're telling
me it's right now. It's available. You're already in the room. I can give you the chart, but you're already here. And I've heard it often, and from many sources that I greatly admire and respect. The Upanishadic translations I read, and everywhere. It's just not an experiential knowledge yet.
No, it'll never be an experience, because experience is always, you see, the thumb can't experience itself. The thumb has to touch something, like it'll have to touch my screen. That's when the thumb has to be seen by the eye. The thumb doesn't know itself. You cannot experience this.
Wow.
You cannot experience this, because experience requires separation. I experience something. Now, how do you experience the I itself? It's a non-experience. It's the opposite of an experience. So this is not an experience the way you're used to having experience. In fact, somebody came to the teacher and said, I got it. He said, when did you get it? Oh, just 5 minutes back, I got it. He said, yeah, you haven't got it. Because if you because the right thing to say would be, it got me. It got me. Because the I that was trying to get, see, first I was trying to get a good girlfriend, a good boyfriend, a good job, a good house. Then after I got all of that, I said, no, this is not enough. Let's get virtue. Let's get spirituality. Let's get honor. Then you start look more refined things, right? And now, okay, now you heard about enlightenment. Let's get enlightenment. In fact, when I was a monk, we had a very handsome guy from France. He was actually tall, handsome. He was like naturally bald, actually. He was like a supermodel. He was like a French supermodel who came to our monastery. Very charming guy. And we asked him why he's there. He says, oh, I've been studying Buddhism and I heard about enlightenment. And I thought I will break away from my life, my work. I'll spend this 3-4 years and get this enlightenment business out of the way. And sure enough, he didn't even last 3 weeks, So when you come with a sense of, I will get this. No, I is not going to get this. So the person who came to the teacher saying, I got it. The teacher already knew it was wrong. Because you can't get this. It's going to get you. The one that thinks it's in control, that's the one that has to surrender. When you knock on the door of heaven and say, I want to come in, the answer comes, who is there? You say, I'm there. You say, no, the door will not open. Why? Because there's not place here for two.
Wow.
When you knock on the door and they say, who is there? And there's no answer, the door opens. Because you have to become nothing. To enter the kingdom of heaven, you've got to become nothing. When you become nothing, you realize you're already in the kingdom of heaven. There's no other heaven you have to go. There's no other place. You and I are already in heaven. But we are messing it up with our judgments. What evidence do we have? We are not already in heaven apart from our judgments. Apart from they're building 4G networks on the moon. If they stop that, I'll be in heaven.
Yeah. Wow. Nothingness. That knocking example that you gave, that just reminded me of a Sufi beautiful kalam that they say that when Bulla Shah knocked on his guru's door and the guru asked from the inside, who is it? And he says, Main Bulla. And he says, Tu Bulla nahi, tu Bulleyat. You've forgotten. So with that, I'm happy to wrap up my conversation with you today with deep gratitude. Wherever I'm coming from, it's fine with me that I'm experiencing this gratitude, whichever layer I'm at currently. If there's anything that you'd like to tell our viewers before we close.
Yeah, the thing is, in my work, we say that to teach is a mistake. And to not teach is also a mistake.
Wow.
So now you have to decide which mistake are you going to make. Why is it a mistake to teach? Because I cannot genuinely know just because I've been through my journey and I've learned a few things and certain things have helped me. Just because it's worked for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Like every parent thinks it's going to do such a good job passing on. I'll give my knowledge to my child. I'll tell my child how to go through life. And the children turn around and say, you spoiled me. You messed me up. I messed you up. I just made you study in school so you could have a good job. No, you messed me up. You forced me to study when I wanted to play with my friends. But I was trying to get you a better life. You see, you thought you were doing the best for them. And then that becomes a poison. But then it's designed like this. So it is a mistake to teach. It is also a mistake to not teach. And now one has to make some mistake. Like one Zen master, somebody asked him about his life. He said, life is one continuous mistake.
That makes it hard to take decisions though, no?
No, actually it makes it very easy to make decisions because it's going to be a mistake anyway. No matter which decision you take, it will be a mistake. Because the moment you identified with, even the word decision, the sense that I am deciding, the mistake was already made because you thought that you're deciding. Better to be in a state of curiosity. Like Byron Katie, one of my teachers, she says, when I go to the supermarket to buy a bottle of water, I'm very curious to see, because supermarket will have many, many brands, many sizes. I'm very curious to see which one my hand will pick up, because you never know. And if you're very honest, you never know. You go to buy achar, you go to buy jam, you go to buy bread, and you think you know what you're going to buy, but you never know until you pick it up. You really don't know what your hand's going to actually pick up. You think, oh, that's the one that, oh, this is the one. And so, you thought you chose to wear that yellow sari today, but did you really? How many factors, it took the whole universe to make sure those 10 saris were available to you. And then it's a factor of many things. Maybe yesterday you wore some other color. Maybe yesterday if you'd worn yellow, you said, no, not today. Yesterday I wore yellow, enough. So did you really decide to wear that yellow sari? Or did that sari decide to wear you?
Wow.
So like this, I would just like to get people to, there's a lovely teaching I'm going to leave them with. In fact, I'd like to imagine an ocean.
Mm-hmm.
You're on the beach and the waves keep coming in. And there's a bench over there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a sign by the bench which says, relax. Nothing is under control.
Lovely. You do know how to pull the rug right out of someone. Yeah, it's like, relax, the worst is yet to come.
Yeah. Like one of the Zen masters said, it's okay. You don't have to worry about death. You will die for sure. Don't worry about it.
Beautiful.
Lovely. Thank you, Garima.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Enjoyed your vivaciousness and the sincerity with which you interacted with me today. Lovely.
Thank you so much.